Protests are raging right now in New York City after a judge ruled yesterday that pro-Hamas activist Mahmoud Khalil could be deported by the Trump administration. The post-grad student was labeled a national security risk after he led anti-Israel riots on Columbia's campus last year. Now, this is a major legal win for President Trump as he continues his battle against antisemitism on college campuses, while Khalil's lawyers say that they plan to appeal the ruling. Watch.
We are taking a stand on behalf of Mahmoud, and he is taking a stand. He's decided to stay in jail and fight this case to the bitter end while we try to establish that people like Mahmoud have a constitutional right to speak out in this country.
But Secretary of State Marco Rubio disagrees.
If you are in this country to promote Hamas, to promote terrorist organizations, to participate in vandalism, to participate in acts of rebellion and riots on campus, we never would have let you in if we had known that. And now that we know it, you're going to leave. He's going to leave, and so are others, and we're going to keep doing it.
Fox News correspondent CB Cotton is live in Times Square with the latest on the protest. You know, CB, take us through, what are you seeing right now on the ground? Take us through what you've seen today.
Hey, Lisa, well, this iconic part of the city has seen a slew of anti-Israel protests since the start of the war in Gaza. But now we can expect Mahmoud Khalil to become a focal point of these demonstrations. You can see here people carrying signs with his face calling for his release. And as we've been talking about, this all comes after that immigration judge ruled the government can move forward with its efforts to deport the green card holder. Yesterday, that judge affirming a memo by Secretary of State Marco Rubio where he said that Khalil's beliefs threaten national security. Now, Khalil's attorneys pushed back on that in court and said their client is being targeted for constitutionally protected free speech. But the immigration judge said Rubio's memo alone made the Columbia graduate deportable. After that ruling, Khalil's attorneys slammed the judge and the entire court proceeding. Listen to this.
It was the epitome of the lack of due process in a court proceeding in this country. It was shocking. The immigration judge had made up her mind before the hearing even started what she was going to do.
On the other hand, the Trump administration is calling this ruling a win, and former federal prosecutor Andrew Cherkasky said the ruling proves one thing.
It exposes one of the biggest lies in the Biden administration, that Joe Biden repeatedly said that because Congress didn't pass laws, he was left helpless to protect the borders. No, it always has been and always will be the executive's function to protect the borders and to control immigration.
So Khalil's legal team now has until April 23rd to file applications for relief to try to stop any potential deportation. Back to you.
Hey, CB, you've been with the crowd, it seems like, for a few minutes. You're walking with them now. Can you explain to us, give us a feel for what that crowd is, the demeanor? Are there any counter-protesters? About how many are there?
I would say there are about 150 people right now here, Joey. They are very, very upset after the judge's ruling yesterday. Many people out here saying that they feel what is taking place in Gaza is a genocide. They're calling the United States complicit in that. And they're also slamming the Trump administration, saying it's going after students, targeting free speech. We have seen a few counter-protesters, some waving Trump flags and saying that this is the United States and that our national security interests have to be put first. I will say that the crowd of anti-Israel protesters far outweighs the counter-demonstrations out here.
Hey, CB, it's Alicia. I know there's this one court battle that we've been talking about, but he also has a separate legal battle in New Jersey. Can you tell us about that?
So, yeah, that separate case in federal court in New Jersey is with Khalil's legal team asking a judge to rule on their claim that Khalil's First Amendment rights were violated with his arrest and detention. Those attorneys are also asking to secure his release so the Columbia graduate can be with his wife, who is expecting their first child this month. So a lot more to watch for in that federal court case in New Jersey.
Well, CB, we know that Khalil is a Columbia University graduate. How's the campus responding to all of this?
In addition to protests that we're seeing here in this city, there have also been several protests over on the campus. Within the past month, we saw a group of Columbia graduates arrive on campus and rip up their diplomas, denouncing the school and denouncing the school administrators. We also saw a couple weeks ago students who chained themselves to a fence over on that campus. So there's a lot of outrage. Several student groups are very upset, and these groups are saying they're not going to stop until Mahmoud Khalil is released. But as we've heard from Secretary of State Marco Rubio several times about this case, the administration's stance is that having a student visa or having a green card is a privilege and not a right.
Interesting. And CB, what's the timeline on the New Jersey case?
So yesterday, the judge in New Jersey said that he wanted to get a briefing from both the U.S. government and Khalil's legal team about the immigration case. So the next steps for what happens with the New Jersey case are not quite clear yet, but that judge did ask for a briefing about the Louisiana proceedings.
CB Khan, great reporting as always. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
All right, and while the Trump administration got a win in the ruling on Khalil, the fight to eradicate campus and anti-Semitism is far from over. Now the White House wants federal oversight of Columbia University to make sure the university complies with the president's anti-Semitism directives. This comes as the administration has already started cracking down on campus agitators, as ICE has reportedly revoked visas from international students in at least 29 states so far. So Joey, I want to look at the Khalil case for just a second. His attorneys are saying that this is a free speech issue. If you look at the Trump administration, and on the right, they're saying it's an immigration issue and a national security issue. So which one is it?
It's both, and that's why it's interesting, and that's why it's tied up in court in a couple of different places. He has permanent legal status. So he has that granted to him because of the paperwork he filed after he got married to an American citizen. And so why that's important is the Trump administration is challenging in court now really how binding permanent legal status is. Like, is that something that makes you equivalent to a citizen for due process? Is it something that as long as you don't get yourself in trouble and we don't dislike you, you can stay here? I mean, if they had something to show his direct tie to Hamas, which is now labeled a terrorist organization, or if they had something to show that he directly violated the law in the protest efforts, then I think it would be more cut and dry. But really the reason why it's turned into such an immigration issue is the Trump administration is attempting at this point to force the courts to say, what does permanent legal status actually grant you, and how much authority does the federal government keep on deporting you?
Elise, you look at some of these student visas that have been revoked, or even in the Khalil case, the government argues that he failed to disclose some of his past work. For instance, failed to disclose that he worked at the Syrian office at the British Embassy in Beirut, and then also failed to disclose working for the UN Relief's Work Agency for Palestine Refugees. So, doesn't this also come down to vetting? And should we be doing a better job vetting some of these people before they're issued a student visa or a green card?
Right, and I think that's the administration's point in all of this, and it is having a chilling effect. I'm sure that there are students across the country at campuses who are actually starting to think back about what they put on their applications, what they did reveal, what they didn't, and if they're wondering if that's going to float to the surface. But that's the point, and this administration wants us to look a little harder at how we allow people in and the ways in which we do it, and this is just one of the ways in which that they are actually using that tool.
Yeah.
Well, and shouldn't we be able to dictate who we let into our country and then who we deport, especially if they're not a United States citizen?
100%. And, speaking of Khalil, a dear friend of mine, Harley Lipman, he's on the university's board, and he agrees with President Trump's actions on this in deporting him. And he's also Jewish, so that's something that I should note. But I'll tell you, though, the government has been failing. I'm talking previous administrations, the whole people who we invite in as guests into our country, who have said hateful things about America. And we've seen those videos time and time again. They deaf to America, they burn American flags, but you're here as a guest. Other countries don't tolerate that, not one bit. If they find out that you're speaking against their government, many countries will either put you in jail or deport you. The United States of America, is the greatest civilization ever known to man, I believe. And with that consideration in mind, it is a privilege and an honor to be in this country and participate in the benefits of being here. So, yes, people should be deported. Those who don't respect our laws respect our values.
And can I just add?
Yeah, go for it.
There are thousands of students who come here on these student visas, and they do it for the right reason. And when you have people who withhold information, security information, that actually harms all of those other students who are doing right by the education system here.
Well, absolutely. And those people that are doing it the right way get to stay.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.